Well, let's go ahead and jump into it. I know that Brian said he would be late. Dennis is out. Um, Please put your name in the attendees section just so we know that you were here. I think Prashanth hasn't logged in. No, so might be a quick meeting. Okay. OKD build CI/CD and release updates. I did put the links to the top of the page to the builds as they're coming out. And it looks like there's some failures still. It's interesting. They got the successful build, and then now there's failures again for 16 and 17. For 16 and 417.
Yeah, 416 has never worked. I don't think. And what was the last 470? It's been about a week.
Yeah, since there was a successful one.
So June 27th was the last successful one.
Yeah. And I did link to the, you can see at the top of the meeting notes, I did link to the issues. And they are actually putting tickets in there. And I don't think, unless they've changed anything, let me try logging in right now. But I don't think we have any ability to, let's see. Hold on. Project. Yeah, so we can, let's see. Let's see if this allows me to create one. No, it keeps defaulting to other projects. So apparently I cannot create an issue for OKD. And I don't know that anyone else in the public can. We can for OCP bugs, but not for OKDs. So hence the discussion thread idea as a temporary solution. We don't really have anyone from Red Hat here to speak to if we could get access to write bugs to that. Or if we could do like a front end, if we could write a front end that uses the API to submit or something like that. I don't know. We'll have to find out. So between builds and issues, is there anything else that would help folks get transparency into what's happening? What else can we ask for or provide, ask for from Red Hat or provide to get more transparency into what's happening right now and participation ultimately?
Well, I wonder if it would, like, does anybody actually read the frequently asked questions? Like it might help to give people some guidance on which things they should even try. And it is at least slightly confusing because the builds that are going to eventually fail show up as accepted for a while, for like 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy if you click on it and see that the AWS test is being retried, it's definitely going to wind up failing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if it's
something isn't going to magically
right, if
make
it's
it
been
work.
retried twice, you know, for sure it's going to fail. And if you're a little bit impatient, you can always look and see if the end-to-end installation test is in progress or being retried, and you know it's going to fail. So there's lots of hints that
Yeah.
aren't that subtle. But people need to do it like one more click than just looking at the summary where like right now I'm showing a 4.7 blue ready 6 hours ago.
Yeah.
And ooh, even a 4.16 2 hours ago. It's ready. It's blue.
Yeah.
All the failures are blue, no failures. Ah, so should I get excited?
Yeah.
Uh, and then I say one retry on AWS, two retries on vSphere, uh, and so I'm pretty sure that's going to go down in flames without even clicking further. And we could tell people that in the FAQ,
Yeah. Well, and
but I don't know if
there's that
anybody would go there.
installation page. Yeah.
Yeah.
The testing page. Yeah. That's in process, which I'll talk about in a second. So, Bruce, do you think it would be helpful if we did a screenshot of they should look for the green? Or uh, do you think that we should encourage people to do UPIs, even if it's failing on the cloud builds? Or what are your thoughts? What are anyone's thoughts in regards to that?
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't install on AWS, then I don't see any great benefit in trying a UPI. I've done a lot of them, and they all have failed. Um, so, and I'm happy to try further ones if anybody thinks it would be useful, but I'm not convinced that it's useful until it builds. And I'm pretty sure that they have a better idea of why it's failing than I do.
Yeah.
Uh,
So do we then put something that's a screenshot of this is what to look for, or, and instructions of this is what to look for a past, for a pre-release that has uh that has succeeded? Should we add that criteria into the testing document?
yeah, I think that might be useful. And I
Okay.
don't think it does it ever get green. I don't recall seeing a green
Yeah,
on
there's
the
like a
night
green.
lease.
Yeah, there's like the text turns green, or maybe there's a green. I'm trying to remember.
Like it's there for the next and the stable lines.
So for accepted, if
Let's
we look at
see.
like 413,
Okay, so yeah, no, you're
I
right.
think phased
But
accepted means that it passed all tests, right? So
Oh, I have a mic now. I was just going to say, when you click view breakdown, or I can't remember what the blue link is, it shows it like the 417 one does show the green because it's storing like 5 working versions and then 5 failed, right? It looks to be how it's doing it. So the ones that were last working are still there. I was thinking it may well be that you need a screenshot, but I don't know necessarily if we need people testing every single nightly build, because we have like a 417. We know 417 works, right? Like there was some issues with Prometheus thing that I raised and the Red Hat branding stuff. But unless someone kind of tells us that they're making major changes to something in 417, we've kind of already know that it works now.
uh, well, but it
do
doesn't.
we, or has there been a regression? That's what I'm trying to figure out, is
Right.
because we had that successful one on the 17th, or sorry,
Yeah,
27th, and then suddenly no successful since
right.
then.
And the one on the for the night leads, they don't stay around very long.
Yeah.
So the one from the 27th shouldn't be available anymore, although I haven't looked.
Yeah, well, I think that's because no new ones have succeeded, right? So it's keeping those. It looks to be that way to me. I don't know if they're due to go
Well, yeah, I
away
mean,
at some point.
well, 72 hours, let's see. So basically, day and a half, uh, or 3 days. So yeah, I think it is still pruning after 3 days.
Right.
So for the 16 and 17s, yeah. So I guess my question then is, and I stopped calling them nightlies just because apparently Dennis put them at I think he said every 12 hours or something like that. So you're
Okay.
actually getting two in a day. So it's a little bit more than nightly. So I've been calling them pre-release. If we can come up with a better nomenclature, that might be good. But I think nightlies might be, I don't know. We can go either way, I guess. But just something to be mindful of is that it's more than just nightly. Like it's not
Yeah.
just one a night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, so we can put some descriptive text to tell people what to look for success, right? So green and accepted in the phase field. And what else do we need to add there? Oh, and Brian put the comment on the document that I have for the merge request, to include the fact that we don't need people testing FCOS versions, just the SCOS versions. So, and Tyrone, to your point about like, should we be testing everyone? Probably not, except in cases like this where we don't know if there's a regression. Like, we need a little bit better communication.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think that,
kind of why I was thinking is like something's obviously changed. We're
right,
now waiting to test without knowing if that changes, if
right,
they already know that this is broken, or
right,
and we're just people are spending time because I guess people are spending their own time, right? You don't want to have them told to test everything to find out that we just hadn't communicated that something was
right,
known to be bad.
right.
I guess the point I was making about 417 is like happy to see that I could build. I know Bruce built one, and I know some other people built the 417. It's like cool. So there was a known 417 that worked. I'm not
Yeah,
too concerned about the other things that come after it because we had one that worked. It can't, but at the same time, without knowing, that's just like speculation on why it started failing after that
Right.
point.
Well, we didn't have, I wouldn't go so far as to say we had one that worked. We had one that would build and would
It's
install.
yes, sorry, yeah,
Okay, now it still
yeah,
had some minor things wrong with it,
yeah.
for sure, and maybe some significant things which they're trying to fix. I mean, like getting it to build and install, that's a good, fantastic first step, but it is only a first step.
Yes, I guess when comparing it to having no 416s, I'm saying working, right? Because I had a cluster
Obviously,
that I could reach.
right, right, right.
right. Okay, I'm looking at the issues, the open issues, and it looks like Alessandro Di Stefano opened up one just a little bit ago. Are the dates in UTC? I'm going to guess they are in UTC.
I think so.
Uh, um, and it says here the CloudSig repo is still pinned to 415. Resolve differences between rel and CentOS stream base images. Oh, and this one was updated on the 27th. So add util Linux to base image. Merged 3 days ago. Okay, so yeah, I mean, if we could, I'm looking at these issues and nothing stands out as something that would be like what caused it to fail, recent builds. So I think our next step is getting a timely communication with either Dennis or any of the other folks working on the project to know like what is the blocker and what can we test, like something like a daily communication of some kind to know, okay, what failed here, is it something that the community can test, or is this like a known bug? And if it's something in another, connecting this to the cloud sig stuff, if it's something that can be addressed in CentOS stream, is it something that one of us who's connected to that group could make a contribution to, right? We haven't started talking about that very much yet, but there are things that are missing in CentOS stream. You can see from the tickets that if we had people contributing to that project, we might be able to speed things along a little bit and start to familiarize ourselves with that aspect of OKD, right? So I guess Dennis is on vacation and will be back, I think, next week. So maybe next week we can talk to him about some sort of timely communication path that we can all see somehow, not just one person to another, but something we can see that's like, hey, this is what the issue is. It's a known regression or a known issue, or hey, this is something that is CentOS where someone could contribute. something like that. Any other thoughts on this stuff?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like the Slack channel, he had commented after the 417 had built to say, "Can people test?" People tested, responded to say, "Yes, tested. These are the issues we have." But it then wasn't like, "Okay, that's one goal achieved. This is what we want after that." Right? It's just been that's like the last goalpost of can you build? Yes, we can build. There are image pool errors for the marketplace stuff, and there is the branding issue. And I guess, yeah, just knowing like the next thing, would make sense. So to be honest, I'm happy to test those things. I'm far more interested currently in the FCOS to SCOS migration, 415 to 416 when that comes along. But yeah, these are easy enough to test that I'll also continue doing that.
Right, well,
Fantastic.
you can test the FCOS to SCOS transition right now.
Yes, but in previous meetings there was a conversation around what the guidance would be on the Red Hat side for how that should work or what they're expecting, right? Like I could do it,
Right.
I
Well, I
could
think
just set it up, but I don't think that's like the route, the supported route that was
yeah,
eventually
Right.
what they sort of committed to, saying that there would be in the releases an accepted release that goes from 415 to 416. But as we have no working 416, that's not a thing right now.
Right.
right, but I don't think there will ever be a supported FCOS to SCOS transition.
That's well, when they were in the
The
meeting, they weren't.
I don't know.
Dennis said
Dennis
that
was
that was a
hedging. He was
goal.
sort of hedging that,
Well, he said it was a goal, and so I think first things first is we need to figure out, I think, and folks can correct me, we haven't mentioned this before, is do we know what's the penultimate 415 that didn't have any issues before Vadim stepped away? So
Yes.
if we can, okay, Tyrone, do you know, can you, once you figure that out, can you put that maybe in the meeting notes?
Yeah, I think it was one of the ones I listed in the chat before, but I'll add it to the meeting notes because I just tested this upgrade again from like 412 to the
Okay,
current working 415. I think it's one that was made in March.
okay, because
Um,
there were one or two around that time that didn't work and they didn't, and so
well,
some of the
yeah,
FCOS or SCOS are you talking
FCOS,
about,
because our
James?
goal is we want folks to be upgraded to the FCOS 415 that is known to be working as best as possible, and then from there, ideally pivot to
yeah.
SCOS 416, right?
That's why I was talking about. That's why I was referencing. Like we had the conversation in one of the meetings, right? Of get to that latest version. It
Yeah,
may well be a one-time allow explicit upgrade to a thing, but it's something that is going to be a known thing people need to do, not just that someone should randomly guess which 416 to jump from 415 to.
yeah,
Um,
Well, yeah, but you're not going to be able to like I suggest that you're not going to be able to jump from FCOS 415 to SCOS 416. That's making two changes at once. You're probably better off going FCOS 415 to SCOS
well,
415 and then up from the SCOS one.
well, Dennis was saying that their goal is to get it from a 15
yeah,
FCOS to a 16 SCOS, right?
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
okay.
ideally, yeah, I mean, ideally you would be able to go 15 to 15, but he sent, and and neither him nor Prasant is here to be able to say, but the idea was that 15 is like a maybe, right? Right now we've got 16 and 17 to work with.
yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
but we do have we don't have any 415 stable SCOS, but we do have a whole bunch of SCOS next at the 415 level that seem to work.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah. I mean, we really testing is what's going to tell us what's going to work and
yeah.
what's not. Because we
Right.
Yeah,
don't
it's
want
it's not in
to.
writing, and it's something we need to raise again. But what I took from that conversation, and I know all three of us at least were there,
Yeah.
is that I put in the steps of where how you would get from 412 to 415. It would then be a because we had the conversation about how is it going to be sort of user friendly to someone who's on 415 to get to SCOS. I remember Brian saying at the time, like, we need to have that path planned out for people so that we can communicate it clearly what that is. And they committed to, by words, there seemed to be some commitment to, yes, that should, if it's explicit, if it's a one-time sort of manual thing you need to do, but that is a path they intend to not support in the normal sense, but, you know, have most people expect to need to do, let's say.
Yeah. Tyrone, could I trouble you to put your notes in a HackMD so that we can all see them as you go through your work? Would it be possible to just throw some stuff in a HackMD document that?
Yeah, I've already kind of had to document it for other reasons, so I can put together what I know coming from 412 to current 415, like how many upgrades that is in the, again, supported sense. What I mean when I use that is the next highest upgrade available in the UI or in the available upgrades list as you're doing 412 to 415. There are about 7 of them. You have to do many 413 jumps. You then go to one version of 414, one version of 415, then you go to the latest 415 and it stops there in March. And that's why I'm thinking, well, the one I'm interested in is that 415 to, and that's kind of a problem in itself, a July built 416, if that's when it's going to be working. I don't know what that looks like, because, but yeah, I'll add that to the HackMD anyway.
Yeah, if you can, or create a new HackMD doc that's just sort of, whatever you can throw in there that will help this journey for us. You're sort of our ambassador in terms of those types of upgrades. You've been doing the most work in that area, so trying to leverage everybody's efforts.
Yeah, of course. I should have. I think I put it in the chat and I didn't realize it wasn't. I should have just put it in the HackMD myself last time. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. And if you want a separate document, that way you can add to it over time and people can ask questions and stuff like that. So it doesn't have to be the meeting notes. Cool. Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts on that particular aspect? Bruce, anything? Owen, anything?
Well, like it's not clear to me what the criteria is for these various promotions. Okay, so like we have the SCOS next set of things and SCOS stable set of things, and just every now and then Vadim would magically, or somebody would magically promote something from one to the other, and I don't know if there were any specific criteria. I know quite a while ago, you remember that Vadim would have a posting of what was needed to get to the next FCOS stable.
Yeah.
And he would have a whole bunch of tick boxes.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen something like that for a long time.
And I mentioned this, well, actually, we didn't get to it at the meeting. I actually had this as an agenda item at the last meeting, and we didn't get to it, but it was what is our criteria for release? Was it at this meeting or was it at the community meeting? I had it in the agenda. Let me check and see. Oh, it must have been at the community meeting. But yeah, so I actually had that in the agenda. So that would be something to talk about here. Should we wait for Dennis and or anyone else from that crew, or should we have that start that criteria discussion now?
Well, we could maybe start, but definitely we have to wait for Dennis
Yeah.
to get very far.
Yeah.
But because presumably, like if we're gonna, the whole goal is that to stay viable, we need to have some benefit to Red Hat. Otherwise, if it's solely charity, that only lasts so long. And the benefits seem to be that we're actually becoming upstream to OCP. Okay, so if we're upstream to OCP, then that means that the minor release builds that we're doing will be prior to the actual release, and so they won't be stable or things that people necessarily want to use for real. And so then we need to articulate what these different streams are, what the promotion is from one to the next, and so on. Because right now people are happy that you can install it, but eventually we're going to get to the stage of where people will want to be able to actually do the useful things with it.
Yeah.
Um, and at that point, we'll need to articulate a little bit more what's going on than we are right now, where people are just happy to get something, myself included.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. So, Brian, you just showed up. The gist was Bruce mentioned this, and I had put it in the agenda last week, and we didn't get to it. Is starting a criteria for releases. What our criteria will be for actually something becoming a release. Because we didn't really have anything. I mean, as Bruce pointed out, Vadim had a document that once in a while he would, for minor releases, what do we need for the minor release, but nothing for like what's going to be our release, for just maintenance releases and stuff.
My initial comment to that is, that is purely in the hands of Red Hat until we have control of the build and release process. I don't think we can necessarily dictate that. We can hopefully contribute to this discussion around it, but at the minute, the builds are done in Prow, the testing is done in Prow, and we have no direct input to that. So I think we need to sort of work with Dennis to influence what the criteria are, but I think it's them that are setting that agenda at the minute.
So let me flesh that out a little bit. We know that the special sauce is no longer needed. The deemed special sauce is no longer needed in the build process. So theoretically, it's just copying over to Quay the images.
Well, do we know that the secret sauce is over with, or is there some additional secret sauce that's
all right, let's ask that, right? Okay, so
at the minute, I don't think things like the OC client are available in open source. They were using, was it Cooper or Copper? Some
Copper.
internal systems they were pulling things, which was the work that Vadim was doing to take the public Fedora CoreOS to become the OKD image. He was having to add some secret magic.
Yeah, I mean, he basically would take an image and then use the assembler, the Fedora CoreOS assembler, and create a new.
So I think that is still being done by, I don't know whether everything is in the public domain to do that. It might be done more standard now, but I don't know if it is still in the public domain that it can be done, or whether it's still.
But if there are completed images, could we ask that they separate out or at least give us the power as the community to say, hey, copy them over to Quay, we're ready to go on this. Even if that special sauce is still there, if we at least get the control to,
Because my understanding is that the way that is meant to be getting done is with layering, CoreOS layering.
Yes. Yeah.
We're meant to be taking the default public images and then just applying an OKD layer or layers to create our. Now, and again, it's what are the base images? Because I think Zed asked this or mentioned this before. We've got the host node images, but then what is the base for containers, which doesn't need everything that a host base needs. I think so I think there are multiple hosts or base images that we need to talk about, but yeah. For me, it is about what are the use cases that are important to the community. And I think they fall into two camps. There is those that want stability to run a production or a production service. And they want stability, they want known working paths. And then I think you've got the experimenting community that want to try new things, the latest features, more bleeding edge, more sort of build, trash, rebuild, retrash type activities. to actually play with new features, to try in different configurations, to try different things. So I think we've got the two groups, and I don't know whether that causes some disjoint within what becomes a release, because I think one would want it to be more stable, and by definition, the CentOS stream is meant to be that more stable. Whereas I know the Fedora people, like C Group 2, we wanted to get there first. We wanted to try all the new kernel features, all the new, and that really isn't going to be available in the CentOS stream as such. So I do think it's an interesting conversation, but I think for us, the minimum is stability. We want an update graph that is also stable. So when I go to a released thing, I want to always be able to go to the next stable release on the next stable release. I don't want to end up that someone made a mistake and has dead-ended everybody that updated. We've had that in the past.
Yeah.
And I noticed there was an 11 to 12 comment in the Git repo today where someone's followed the update path and they're now broken.
Yeah.
So it's things like that. And I don't know how much testing they do in terms of progression. I think that's one where we get most issues, where people have got a stable release, they run the update, and all of a sudden it didn't work and they're now stuck. So I think having a stable update path is something that we want to add to the testing or to the release mechanism if it's not already there.
Yeah. One of the things that I was thinking about in terms of tests, and this is thinking big picture, would anyone else have an interest in working with me on a test suite that's our own tests? We could write it in Python using PyTest, which is a really easy framework. I don't know if folks are familiar with that, or if someone had another suggestion, but it seems like if we could provide a testing suite of some basic like operator tests, are the operators up, are they whatever, the registry, is the registry, are you able to write to it, stuff like that. We would be able to, even for folks doing UPI, be able to gather feedback on installations and releases.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm talking a lot. Huh? Yeah, I mean, I think that is crucial, especially if we are going to carry on with the operator work and own the catalog, that we absolutely need to do it. And I think the tests are on multiple levels. The first one is the basic install. Can we do an IPI, UPI test on the basic package? The next one is the upgrade paths. So if I've got a previous version, can I do the upgrade? Then I think once you've got it up and running, I think there are the basic tests. Can I write to the registry? Is DNS working? All of these sort of subsystem features that I know Bruce has done a lot with storage. Are the basic things working? But then I think we've got then operator tests. So each operator should have its. So whatever framework we come up with, I think it's got to be flexible enough that we can say, run the UPI install test or run the full suite. And then I think that gets really interesting when you then think, well, what platform are we targeting? Can I target a libvirt or KVM libvirt? Can I target an AWS cloud? Can I target a whatever else?
Well, a lot of it'll be API based, running against the APIs or whatever. So in that regard, there'll be a little bit of consistency. Yeah.
So
So I'm sorry, Tyrone, you were speaking earlier. Go ahead.
no, it's fine. I just waiting for my time. I had seen Christian in February at I think it was FOSDEM, and had asked about the question of conformance testing for our own testing of a release, right? Because we see the upgrade path, and we know that that's supported in that the builds have done that test and say that those 3 versions prior are able to upgrade to this version. And he did say at the time to send him a message, and we've got to share the conformance testing because there is something that can be shared. But I've never been able to get in contact with him. And it feels like we're asking for that, not like looking to now do that ourselves, but it feels like there's something that they already effectively have something to do that. We just don't have it ourselves. And the way he explained it was that it would be something, you know, anyone could run. It's not a specific Red Hat thing. So I'm not sure if there's a way for us to get that conformance test to sort of skip some of the steps that we would want to run ourselves. Because if we're going to be testing each operator, that's difficult.
Well, you remember Mike, Michael has pointed out a Red Hat conformance test that checks whether or not something is a valid OCP/OKD cluster. I've never actually tried it because it looked like it was a little bit intrusive. But I don't know. I mean, that should be added to our list of things that we do to test, I would think.
It just feels it would at least achieve the step of, is cluster valid? I don't know what else it does. And then, yeah, we can do the extra layers on top, right? Like operators and things that are more custom, OKD custom.
Yeah, I think one thing we've got to figure out is, oh, did Brian just accidentally drop himself?
He did.
One thing I think we've got to figure out is what Christian is talking about, or any of the stuff that's within the PROW infrastructure, is that something that users can do, that it can be teased out of PROW? It's a maybe a Python framework or a Go framework, or is it something that a user can actually run, that we can start onboarding people within the community to run these? Because if it's something that has to be within a pipeline, like it has to be within PROW, or it has to be within Jenkins, or, you know what I mean? Or even if it's standalone, but requires a lot of extra libraries itself and stuff, we make it a hard path for people in the community to get involved with testing, right? So my thought is, we want to find something that is as an easy step to get into and use, right? So we can ask Christian what it is. Let me add that as a note. So ask Christian about tests.
I mean, the other thing that comes to mind with tests is the level of resource, the amount of resource needed. Because obviously, if you're going to test a multi-node cluster, you're then talking about memory 64 gig plus CPU cores 20-ish type levels, especially if you then start adding operators to the picture. So I do think we have to be mindful of that. I'm not opposed to using a free open source test framework, because I think the other thing that would be nice to have is published results, so somebody can go and look and get a nice set of a web page which actually has all the tests laid out. And I know a lot of test frameworks give you that for free. So I think the critical thing is, though, if we do use a setup, it's got to be a one-click sort of setup. So whether it uses something like Minikube or something like that, or even OpenShift or OKD, it should be a one-click standard setup, and then you're up and running. It shouldn't be a sort of 20 process, get everything sort of installed, configured, and with a bit of luck, you've got 20% chance it works.
Right. All right, any other thoughts on testing? All right, we've got some work ahead of us in terms of narrowing that down. All right, I want to move on now to the operators stuff. We had 2 people that are interested in contributing to operators. Owen, is there any way that either you or Zed could set up a page that would be like a landing page for the operator work, so we could just show people like where things at, how they can get involved. Right now it's all done sort of through chat and whatnot, but if there were a landing page where then folks could find out what the latest news is and know to contact you to see how they could help, that would
Yeah,
be.
we could have a website or something. I also created a discussion page on the GitHub project for the OKD Orators catalog, because there were people using the issues to ask for help, and I just wanted to direct them towards that instead. So I'll probably end up using that just for announcements and everything.
Okay. All right, maybe then should we create a page in the website that's like a stub for that? And then Brian, and this ties into, you want to talk about what you mentioned in the merge request? I think that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, when we sort of did the last big refactor of the website, we sort of took the decision that we wanted to try and consolidate all information sources onto the web rather than have it scattered across multiple repos. At that point, we were also in the OpenShift repo, as well as we didn't have an OKD repo. So it was even more complex to actually try and find out where OKD related information was. And I guess the question is, do we want to keep that as the policy where we try not to put, I mean, if there's anything like how to build an operator or how to build a Git repo, that should be in the README on a repo. But in terms of more generic how-tos, where to find information, I still think trying to have a central landing place where we can just say start there and you should be able to get everything you need is a good thing. Which is a comment I put on Jamie's testing proposal, or the change request he made. So yeah, I mean, I still think that we should be trying to get okd.io as the landing place for everything and get that organized. But the second point of that, I know that Zed was going to refactor that, so I've been sort of trying not to touch that. So I think we need to understand if that's going to go ahead. Because I know when there's a lot of changes and you're trying to transition something over, it's a nightmare. So I've been trying to stay away from that, but I'm not sure whether that's happening or not. Because I think we do need to make some changes to that site. I think we do need a very, very good getting started landing point. I know Bruce has done a lot of work with Charo's stuff to actually get that working. You mentioned you've got some scripts, Jamie. We want to sort of have get it started, whether you're on BertLib, AWS, Proxmox, or whatever. We want to pull those resources into a page. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that having a web page as a landing page is a good idea. Yeah, for the topic, whatever the particular topic is. So Owen and Zed, well, Zed's not here, but Owen, what do you think about creating a web page that would be sort of the landing for the operators project? And then
I think that would be a good idea, just so that we can have like basic installation instructions for adding the catalog to your cluster, and then obviously linking out to the discussions for help and support, and yeah, just a basic overview of how it works.
Okay, can you run with that? Can the two of you run with that and then just report back in a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, and then Brian, I'll add the note that you suggested about that we need only SCOS testing into the document, and then just copy the text over and do it as a web. Well, let's find out from Zed. I think Zed will be online maybe later or tomorrow, tomorrow. And let's find out before we do anything on the web, I guess, find out where that project is for migrating. So I think it would look much better if we could do it. And it seems like we're headed towards a time where it would be good, since we're starting to post stuff, and particularly once Tyrone starts getting the stuff together in terms of migration starting to build a migration page for folks to migrate from FCOS to SCOS. So all the pieces are coming together now. Yeah. All right. What was there was one more thing that we had. No, actually that was it. So, and then, oh, Tyrone, you put the info in there for upgrading from
Yeah, it's
2020.
only, there's not not too much notes needed for those jumps from my perspective, so I just put it there. But if it needs to go, once we get, yeah, as we sort of said earlier, once I have more info about the 416 migration thing, then we could say more somewhere else if it's needed. But right now, that's kind of where it stops. You get to a March version, and you have nothing more that's supported to get to.
Well, thank you for putting that in there. That's awesome. And linking to the Red Hat articles. That's very cool. Oh, bouncing back to testing. Bruce, you had something?
Well, just that I was doing a quick search for the information that Mike had put, and I noticed this OpenShift infrastructure provider onboarding guide. And it says once you install your system, you should run these conformance tests. So, okay. And there's a bunch of other conformance testing on the OpenShift side of things that are sort of open Red Hat documents.
Yeah, it
that-
looks
that we
like
can
it's
have a-
PROW based. So yeah, because isn't it for a provider, doesn't Red Hat give you access to resources to be able to do that? Yeah.
Yeah, Mike was talking about that 8 weeks ago, where they've done a lot of work on boarding new providers, and it's almost a self onboarding process rather than them having to do it. And the conformance testing is a big part of that.
Oh, here we go. So OPCT utility. The OPCT is an option when the provider does not have integration with OpenShift CI and wants to get quick feedback about conformance execution in their infrastructure. The tool allows orchestration of conform. They need to fix the language on that. Allows orchestration of conformance test suites used in OpenShift CI in custom installations. Providing signals of the custom installations is okay. I'm gonna put in a fix on this for the language because it doesn't read very well. Is passing on the E2E tests required for a healthy OpenShift installation. OPCT ecosystem. Oh, the tool has been renamed from, oh, okay, I see. I got it. Okay, so this was the OpenShift provider cert, and now they just call it OPCT. Can be downloaded from the releases page. Okay. Let's see. When was this release? So the last release was on September 26th of 2023. So I don't know if that's a good thing or, I mean, does it do everything that they need it to do? All right, let's find out more from Mike. I'll add that to more questions to ask. Let's see, status of OCPT. And what does it, and is it going to provide everything that we want people to gather? Like, will it cover what we want people to be able to determine in terms of operators, in terms of functionality, etc.? Good find, Bruce. I'd forgotten all about this.
On the sort of, once you get something installed, Jamie, you talked about writing something to the registry, but of course, initially you don't have any storage associated with the registry. And there's a bunch of different things that you can do. What I haven't tried is on a single node install, installing Owen's data foundation operator, and using something other than Ceph. Like there's a local storage operator. You can use NFS, but it's not recommended, but it's possible. So like we probably should have a recommendation in the here's what you do to initially set something up to get the image registry going as well. And it'd be nice if that was here, just install this operator out of the OKD Raters catalog.
What was that? Sorry.
Well, if we're on a like a small cluster, so like I actually use a box with just 2 cores to test single node installs. And I don't bother to go through and set up storage for the image registry. And I also haven't tried installing the the data foundation operator that you guys did. I haven't installed that on anything smaller than like a 3 physical box, type cluster. And it works like a charm with Ceph storage and all those things. But it looks like it's not only intended for that, but it might be useful for getting going on a tiny install, which is I
Yeah,
guess
for tiny installs, they do recommend using the LVM operator, which I'm looking to actually build out next. That's recommended in their documentation for single node. So
right.
yeah, that might be something nice to use.
All right, we're just about at time. Is there anything else that we wanted to cover in this meeting? And I think Brian is back from vacation. I'm sorry, Dennis is back from vacation next week. Does anyone else have any vacations coming up now that we're in summer, just so we're aware to see if maybe we would need to cancel a meeting or anything? Okay. All right, I think we're good. We got some homework to do, so please check the meeting notes. We've got to find out from Christian and Dennis about tests, and talk to Mike about the status of OCPT. And then I think start categorizing the 3 types of tests, 3 or 4 types, depending on how we break it down. Testing checklists, basically, installation, day 2, and then running basic tests for moving forward, and then operators test. Think about what are the things we would need to know, right? We can talk about that more like at the next meeting. And if you check the OCPT, they actually have like a template of what you're supposed to provide. OPCT actually have like a template of, they call it the installation checklist. And that's actually got some things that you would want working and properly configured on a cluster. So testing that those things actually work. All right. Thanks, everyone, and see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.